Good afternoon and welcome to our SKUFood Recipe for Success for Wednesday, May 6th. And I'm excited this week because we have a special guest this week, which is great. And we're really looking forward to having Carolyn Crewe here with us today and sharing a lot of her insights and knowledge with us. So we're excited, and I'll introduce Carolyn in a minute. First thing I want to do is just remind you that we've designed these SKUFood Recipes for Success to share some insights for you into the food industry and how to help you with your businesses right now during these challenging times. I mean, they really are different, and Carol and I were talking about it a little bit. I think people are starting to accept that this is sort of, we'll call it the new normal, and we're trying to figure out how to do business and how to succeed in a different world. And that's really what our Recipe for Success are all about, a way for us to give back and share some insights. So we will be recording the session today, and for all of those of you who've registered, we'll be sending you a link afterwards so that you can watch at your leisure again, or in case you missed it. And then also we put these into our SKUFood membership site for our SKUFood members to enjoy whenever they want to check it out. We want the sessions to be interactive, so if you do have some questions, by all means, use the question space at the bottom of your screen there. You can enter your questions in, and we'll take a break a few times and address some of them. And if there are things, I mean, that's really what this is all about, is making sure that we provide you what's important for your food business. So if you have questions, we definitely would be looking forward to them. And we'll be doing a few polls today during our session, just to get some insights from you into what you think and what's going on in your business. So we'll look forward to your input on those. So Carolyn, welcome. After my big preamble there, welcome to our Recipe for Success, and we want to thank you for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
It's great of you to give your time and be here. And I think that for me it's so important because Carolyn has done it, and from different things like deciding whether to sell online, choosing an e-commerce platform, whether it's Amazon, different things, how to build brand awareness. She's done a lot of these things with her business, Duckish. And just to give you a little bit about Duckish, Carolyn's the CEO and co-founder, and Duckish is a natural skincare, delightful, all-natural bath, body, and baby care brand that's based actually right here where I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So it's always nice to have some success stories from our own backyard as well. So and Carolyn has really learned a lot about navigating in e-commerce and the brick and mortar world. So she's selling in both, and we've got a little bit of exciting news which we can share in a little bit later on. We'll keep you waiting for that exciting news that Carolyn was telling me about earlier. But she's really grown this business into a thriving e-commerce brand with national distribution into 125 stores and growing, including Whole Foods. So we welcome you, Carolyn, and thank you very much for being here with us. And if I had an intro like that, I'd be off to the races.
I can't complain. I'm gonna go along with it. Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah,
yeah. So what we thought we'd do, just so that it helps us, especially Carolyn, in terms of the content and the way that she's going to go through some of the things that she has, is to ask you where you're at and how many of you are selling online right now. And so we're just going to put that poll up there, and we'd really like to get your input right now. So are you selling your food and beverage products online? Just a simple yes or no. And then also, if you work as a support for the industry, say in government or industry association, that kind of thing, then that will help us understand just a little bit more about our audience and make sure that we try to frame our content that's the most effective for you. So, and I had given Carolyn my guess as to how this would play out. And from looking at what we see so far, I think I was not too far off, which is good. It's good when you know your audience. That's important in all this.
Yes, very much.
So it looks like we're roughly about 26% or so. 1 out of 4 of you would have products for sale online now. About a third would be saying not yet, and then about 4 out of 10 would be support or a resource for the industry. So that's close to my guess was a third, a third, a third. So we're close. So to really dive in, and one of the things I always try and say to people is I want to get right at the content and help people learn. So when you were learning about online and sort of deciding to start making that channel part of your business, what helped you make that decision? What were some of the things you were thinking about?
Sure. So it's myself and my partner, Josh. We knew that we didn't want to get into the overhead and the costs associated with the brick and mortar space. That was probably the largest deciding factor, is we just didn't want to have to deal with that. So that obviously leaves you with e-commerce. We looked at Amazon briefly, but decided it was not a good fit for us out of the gate. And when we talk about Amazon, we can unpack that a little bit more later. But basically we knew that e-commerce was going to be the path of choice. The other thing was that we knew we wanted to start out slow and kind of have a part-time sort of situation happening, and then kind of see how things unfolded, and then obviously make further decisions about how we wanted to do things later in the evolution of our brand. So I would say those were like the big deciding factors, because obviously the cost of having a physical space and employees and the whole thing is insanely expensive. And when you are a new brand out of the gate, it takes time. It takes time to build up sales. So we opted to bypass that debt and throw our hat in the ring in the e-commerce world.
Okay. And when you were, so you looked at the amount of capital required to get into business, the complexity of building the brand.
Yes.
Are there any other things that you looked at and said, or maybe even if I look at it a little differently and said, in hindsight, are there some things that you wished you'd considered or different factors?
No, not for that decision about whether or not to go online or offline. Hindsight is obviously 2020, so I can talk for days about all the things that you would do differently. But the decision to go online out of the gate, I don't have any regrets about that, especially now, given that the retailer side of things has definitely slowed down. So I also think it's possible to do both.
Okay.
Right, diversify a little. So yeah, I wouldn't change a thing.
All right. And when you started, and we're going to talk online, that's the purpose of today, but when you did go to bricks and mortar retailers, say Whole Foods, for example, and told them that you were selling online now, they were good with that? They said, that's fine?
Because it's to sound like cheesy, like synergistic. So like we have our own following and our own audience. But they have their own following and audience. So by us growing as a brand outside of the walls of Whole Foods, it actually helps them sell our product, which makes them money. So if anything, it's complementary. They help each other.
Okay. So they didn't see it as competition at all.
Nope.
All right. Yeah. So you made the decision, you looked at it, you said online is going to be the best way for us to get into business. So you built a $25,000 website and no. Okay. So how did you do it?
I did it. So basically the next question for us once we decided that we wanted to go down the e-commerce road is at the time, this was 5 years ago, there were many platforms, or even more now, that you can use to kind of provide the back end, like the actual e-commerce part. The behind the scenes of your website. So for us, it was a discussion about whether or not to use Shopify or BigCommerce.
Okay.
We ended up going with Shopify. So that was I guess a question about, which platform to use, because they all come with costs, right? But in terms of the building of the website, once you've decided on the background kind of e-commerce functionality platform, you buy a theme. There are millions of free themes out there. We bought a theme because we kind of had an idea of the aesthetic and the user experience that we were hoping for. Bought a theme, and then I learned how to, so when you buy a theme, for anyone who doesn't know, it's where all the images are, where all the text is placed, the colors, the whole thing. If you want to change the theme in any way, so adjust the images, adjust the colors, the font, any of those things, you have to go in and change the code. That's the only way to do it. So I basically figured out how to do a lot, and then I basically harassed the Shopify support team or the app support team, like whoever designed the theme, into helping me make the changes to get it look how I wanted it to look. It was by no means perfect, but it had the colors we wanted to use. It showed the images in the way we wanted to show the images, all the kind of like basic things. But we basically, I think, spent, and again, you can buy a free theme. I think we spent maybe $200 on a theme. And then it was my time to figure out how to, adjust things like I mentioned. And then you pay your monthly Shopify fee. You buy your domain and your hosting. And that was it. So you can pay someone to do all those things for you. We didn't have the money to do that. So, I paid in terms of my time and stress and aggravation in doing it and figuring out how to do it myself. But it was definitely not a huge capital investment on our end.
Right. And so
even now it's easier because there are so many other companies out there doing it, and there's so many more themes to choose from. So now it's got to be even easier to do it.
Right. Yeah, there are sometimes too many options for all this.
Yes.
But so you picked the e-commerce platform before you built your website. So it wasn't like you built a website and then started making sure you could do the fulfillment part.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
And with Shopify, I don't know how many people are familiar with it. Basically, it is there to handle all the things. So when someone goes through your website, they put items in their cart. They then go through the checkout process where they choose the shipping and the whole thing. They process the payment. And then behind the scenes, you get to see orders coming in, all the customer information, what they ordered. They connect you directly with a Canada Post shipping option if you would like. So it's really like everything you need in one spot to be able to receive orders and then ship orders, fulfill and ship orders. So it's pretty seamless.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in a typical week now, and you probably don't even have a typical week, but how many hours would you be looking at some of those metrics from Shopify and the things that it's telling you about your business?
Oh God, that's a good question. I do a lot of glancing at things, like a quick kind of like just check to update things. Usually when orders come in, I will check to see where they are, if it's Canadian or American. Double checking to make sure that our inventory levels that are actually in Shopify are still accurate, because we sell through other channels as well outside of Shopify.
Right.
So that's a whole other inventory management
So you have to manage
pickle.
The total inventory in the business. And would you look at your Shopify part as sort of one customer almost?
That's hard to say, because we've since launched an Amazon store in November. Actually two, Canadian and American. So we put products on Amazon, aside from one, that we don't offer on our website. So we try to be like not cannibalize one from the other. But that being said, we know that there are people that have shopped on our website that will now buy on Amazon because they can just add our stuff to the basket they already have going. And then vice versa, people that discover us on Amazon and then come to our website and will buy on our website. So in the Venn diagram of customers, there's definitely overlap. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
And would you say on your site that it makes sense? Do you have some things that are unique to your site, or the products that are available in your e-commerce are the same as what you would offer to say to Whole Foods or?
Yes. So our product line the SKUs we have are the SKUs we have.
All right.
So we do a lot of bundling and like gift sets.
Mm-hmm.
And Whole Foods carries about 80% of our SKUs. But we, in all those other stores that carry our stuff, some stores only carry bath bombs and some stores only carry baby products. So you rarely, because of the size of the stores, get a store that will carry the entire lineup. And now I've forgotten the question.
Well, we're just talking about the whether what's available in your
right.
e-commerce is the same as
Exactly.
what you sell to other customers.
This may happen constantly, just PS. So the lineup of products we have is what we have, because obviously creating and launching a new product is a huge undertaking. So we try to do like a mix and match in unique ways to ensure that one channel doesn't cannibalize another channel.
Okay, so that's important.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So what are the top 3 things that you think that people who would be a producer or food producer, processor should know, before they embark in this selling online thing?
It will be way more expensive and take way longer than you want it to.
It sounds like selling at retail.
Exactly. There's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of overlap in terms of building a brand or a business online versus in store. The struggles are similar in many, many respects. But that's a big one. The thing that really applies in the online world that isn't necessarily as prevalent in the brick and mortar space is shipping. Shipping can sink the ship. Like really, for me to ship a teeny tiny thing to Newfoundland, which is where I'm originally from, when my mom orders something, I love it, but I also hate it because I know I'm going to spend like $17 to ship a teeny tiny thing.
Right.
So if you don't understand the cost of shipping to your customers, it can really, really sink your business. And a lot of people don't know that before they get into it. So that is definitely something to take very, very seriously. So yeah, expensive, takes a long time, shipping. And then I would say the other thing that comes to mind is that just like having a physical store, you need to get people in the doors, right? So if you build it, they will not necessarily come. So you need to have a plan for how to get not just people to your website, because you could get people to your website, but if they're not the people who are going to be interested in what it is you have to offer, you're not going to sell anything. So really have an idea of how you are going to bring the right people to your online store.
Right. Okay. So money and time, figuring out the shipping logistics part of it, and driving buyers to your website, not just traffic.
Yep.
Okay. And it's interesting because obviously my background is more on the retail side. And I think you're right, the similarities are there. It's just a different format, because we see a lot of producers and processors, when you say, okay, how's this going to get to the warehouse, or how's it going to get to the store? And they don't factor that, which can be up to 15 or 20% of your margin can get eaten up that way, right?
Big deal. Big deal.
Okay. So I'm going to just take a break and see if anybody does have any questions for you right now. I was going to say questions for us, but they'll want to ask you, not me. So we'll see if anybody's got any questions. I think there is one there, so let me just have a look. And so what the question is, it says, does shipping costs to certain locations, i.e. more remote communities, affect who your customers are?
No, because you, the customer, whether you're in the north, because we have one customer, so we make bath bombs, which come in a little box like this, and she buys our bath bombs. She's in the Northwest Territories. It's like minus 15 degrees there. It's cold, so she takes a lot of baths. I love her, but every time I get an order from her, I also kind of cringe a little bit, because I know that we're not really making much money on the order, because so much money is going out the door on our part to pay the shipping costs. She pays, depending on her order amount, if it's above $50, we offer free shipping.
Okay.
So if she spends $50, she pays no shipping. If she spends less than $50, she only pays $4.95 in shipping.
Mm.
Right? So for the customer, they don't understand, for the most part, how much it costs to ship products to them, because they just pay what they would pay as a customer.
And
Yeah,
your shipping costs are variable depending on where it goes.
absolutely. Depends on the size, the weight. We actually kind of geeked out before we did all this.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew what our products were going to be. We knew that we were going to bundle certain items to create these little gift sets. We actually put the sets together, put them in the box that we would ship them in. So we had the measurements and the weight to be able to go on Canada Post website and see what the shipping cost would be,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that we were not screwing ourselves over when it came time to launch our website.
Right. So you knew, you roughly had an idea of what shipping would be
Absolutely.
as a percentage of your total sales.
Yep.
All right. And what I'm gonna jump ahead, because one of the things I was gonna ask you is there a percentage that people should think about for that number, or is it so variable?
Depends on what you're shipping and how big it is and how heavy it is and where it's going. Shipping to Newfoundland sucks.
Yeah.
So
it's so variable, but people have to do their homework to understand the cost.
Absolutely. I mean, assuming you're getting into this to make money,
Mm-hmm.
you need to figure that out before you actually pull the trigger on things. Yeah.
All right. So there's 2 more questions. So why don't we dive into those right now before we keep going? So the second one is, do you need a wide range of SKUs before considering going online?
I would say no. And I say that because you can go on Amazon right now and find, I'm sure, a million businesses that only have one product.
Mm-hmm.
You can also do that with your own website, but it depends on the price point, because you need to think about, if a customer is coming to your website and you're going to have to charge them something for shipping, when they spend $10 on your thing, are they going to want to spend $7 on shipping? Probably not. And that kind of like ties in with whether or not the Amazon thing might be appealing. There are more factors to that equation, but it's one thing to kind of keep in mind. But I feel like as long as you have a product, why not?
Yeah,
right?
And I think that you're right. One of the things we have to think about is it's the value and the product we're delivering to the consumer.
Yes.
Whether you're selling online, bricks and mortar, it's really a delivery method as opposed to the value that your product brings to the market.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple more questions which are actually kind of similar.
Sure.
So the first one, and maybe I'll try and combine them if I can. So it says, have you always offered free shipping and set shipping costs for customers? And then the second one says, do you show your shipping costs, or is it embedded in the price? So have you always offered free shipping or free shipping over a certain amount, I guess is the way.
We have always offered free shipping over a certain amount. It started out as free shipping on $75 and up.
Mm-hmm.
And then otherwise shipping, I think, was $7.95. Okay. And then after like doing a million interviews and talking to people and just our own experience, no one wants to pay shipping, like, period. Like, it doesn't matter if it's like 5 cents, like the psychological thing behind, like, you are charging me shipping.
Mm-hmm.
People don't like it. So we did our best to basically bring the shipping cost down as much as possible. So now we've basically lowered the free shipping threshold. So $50 and up gets you free shipping. Mm-hmm. Less than $50 is $4.95. Less than $20. So if you buy like a lip balm, shipping is $7.95.
Okay.
So most people, it's not a big deal to spend $20 on something. You pay $4.95. Mm-hmm. But there is a huge psychological barrier around shipping. So you can, depending on your price point, put some of the shipping cost into the price, so the customer absorbs some of that, whether they realize it or not, right, which is pretty standard. The other thing you can do is charge people whatever the flat rate. We don't charge people. You can get apps that will show the actual shipping costs, like it's like a live shipping thing, mm-hmm, which we're not going to charge the customer like 13, like I'm not going to charge my mom $16.95 to ship her something in Newfoundland. So we've, through Shopify, you can set up these thresholds where the customer is automatically presented with the shipping options. And we've always done that. People like free shipping. It's also a way to kind of upsell.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Right?
You trade people up if
Yeah.
one
So
more item and then you get free shipping kind of thing. Yeah.
one more item, like put that extra lip balm or whatever it is into the cart. So yeah, free shipping is something we've always done. We've always had these tiers. But we have decided that it's more advantageous for us to eat a few extra dollars on the shipping front to be able to bring it down to $4.95 in shipping, because it helps remove that psychological barrier around shipping. Abandoned cart rates are like 70% like across industry.
Wow.
It's like I can't remember. It was like over $1 trillion worth of abandoned carts worldwide across industry. So
Wow.
anything you can do to reduce that perceived risk or that friction when it comes to making an online purchase is going to work well for your business, and shipping is a huge one.
And so that means when you get them to put the product in their virtual cart,
Yes,
and then when they see a shipping number, they'll say, forget it, I'm out of here.
a lot of people will.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So definitely something that people need to keep an eye on.
Yes.
So for people who are embarking on this, or who are planning to do it, how do you tackle some of the things like margins? How do you know what margin you need to make? I could tell you right now, if you want to sell in bricks and mortar, this is the margin the retailer is going to expect, and we'll figure out what the retail price is. So how do you determine that in the online world?
Very similarly. So because we sell both B2B, like bricks and mortar, and we sell online, the price the customer ultimately pays, no matter where they find us, whether it's our e-commerce site or in someone else's store, it's the same.
Okay.
Right? So if something sells for $6 online, it will sell for $6 in store.
All right.
However, like that means that all the other mouths along the way to get it onto the shelf into the store have to be paid in that $6 cap. So what we did is we knew that B2B, like selling through other people's stores, was probably going to be something we were going to explore. So we kept that in mind when we were coming up with our pricing to ensure that we could figure out our margins. But it's very important to us, and I think it should be very important to anyone, that you understand the cost of your product. And that's the true cost. So your fixed costs, your variable costs, labor, materials, the whole thing, to actually understand how much it costs you to make that thing. Then you should be factoring in a few cents for marketing, a few cents for shipping, so that that when that $6 comes into your store online, that you have covered the costs of everything and you are still making some money. And a lot of people that I talk to have no idea what the true cost. So in terms of margin, we kind of have, so for retail, so for a B2B, we have a rule of 6. So it's kind of like a loosey-goosey. If we want something to sell for this on the shelf, then it should cost us 1/6 of that amount. Otherwise, we're not doing it.
I see. Okay.
So that's something that we have worked out for ourselves for
So
most of our products. Yeah.
You look at your cost of goods as being roughly about 15% is sort of
For
the cost.
E-commerce.
Pardon?
For e-commerce, yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So, but again, we aren't, and I feel like no one is able to make any kind of decisions about pricing or whether or not you should even sell wholesale or Amazon. Later on when we talk about Amazon, especially if you want to do fulfilled by Amazon, you have to understand the cost of your product because they're going to tack on a ton of different fees. So just because you have a product that you think will sell on Amazon, it might not make any sense to sell it on Amazon.
Right. Right.
So I don't have a, like, our margin is always this percent, but it is something that we are acutely aware of.
Well, and I think you have to be, because it's even though you're looking and saying my product, whether it's on the shelf in a food retailer or a drug in the drug channel,
Yep.
it's going to sell for, say, $15. If it's going to sell for $15 online, you've got to remove those costs to make sure there's something left for you.
Yep. And the thing is, selling online, you are going to have a higher margin for yourself, right? Because there are no middlemen involved. So obviously that's a great thing, but because there are no middlemen involved, you have to work that much harder to get people to your store and to reduce whatever kind of risk they may, be perceiving, and remove any of those friction points so that they actually go through with the purchase.
So speaking of that,
yeah,
how do you drive people to your site, and how do you generate sales?
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack.
It's a simple question.
Simple question, no problem. So I think it all starts with you knowing your customer, right? Because like we talked about before, you can bring traffic to your site, but if they're not the right people for you, if they're not going to give a crap about your products, they're never going to buy anything. So who cares?
Right.
So you want to really get an understanding of who is buying your stuff, who would want to buy your stuff, who has the problem that your product can solve. If you want to get all like businessy speak. And kind of, I find it helpful to, and I know like personas, like some people poo-poo them and some people like them. I like the persona because I'm a visual person. And if I can picture like, this is the woman that is my customer, like what makes her tick, right? What is it that I'm able to offer her that she sees value in? How do I make her day better as a result of owning my products? If you understand who that person is and the problem that you solve for them, then that helps you in two ways, in my opinion. One, it helps you find out where they are. Where do they hang out? What blogs do they read? What influencers do they follow? Like it's much easier to find them, which is, I kind of feel, half the battle in terms of letting them know that you exist. So knowing who they are and like what they're about will help you find them, which will make your job of brand awareness much easier. And then the second thing, in terms of knowing what makes them tick, is that whatever messaging that you put out there into the world is going to resonate with them.
Right.
Because you understand what their life is like and why your thing is going to be useful for them. So I feel like that is the first kind of most important step. And if you start talking to people about, hey, I want to launch this business, say this is my product, blah, 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 and just kind of like talk to them, not to try to sell them something, but just to kind of figure out like why they would how this product would fit into their lives in some sort of way. It'll help you figure out who your customer is. And again, what about your product is going to be interesting to them. So if you find out who they are, you can figure out where they hang out online, offline. If you have pet products, for example, you can put posters up in a dog park or at a vet, or like, it's not rocket science, right? But again, a lot of people skip the part about figuring out who their customer is, when that makes everything else so much easier. In terms of bringing them to your website, it's about providing value in some sort of way, which can be really, really hard. And the other thing is, again, going back to like what you put out there in terms of your voice and what you put in your social media posts or in your ads or your blog post or whatever it is that it's got to really resonate with them. And there's no way for you to figure out what's going to resonate with them unless you know what they're into and what their problems are. So for us, we've tried a ton of different stuff. We still have like no marketing budget. So if you want to put up the slide with the sticks,
sure,
this would be a good time, because I'll try to like illustrate the struggle, and then kind of tied into, there's one before this, I think.
Okay.
This one. So one of our best-selling products are these little sticks. And we call them a lotion stick or a body balm stick. And the idea is that it's a moisturizer, but it's in a solid form, right? Mm-hmm. So you take the cap off, you rub a little bit in anywhere you have dry skin, because there's no water, which is the first ingredient, usually like 80 to 90% of any kind of pump or squeeze lotion. Right. They're about 5 times more concentrated. So a little bit does a really, really great job. Mm-hmm. But no one knows what the heck this is, right? Their people are not used to seeing lotion in this format.
That's right.
When they try it, they love it, right? So when we first started out, something that we were like, oh my God, how are we, like, duh. Going back to the hindsight thing, is that we know what this is, but nobody else knows what this is. Mm-hmm. So we can bring them to our website, but they still don't know what this is. So you really, in the online world, because you don't have staff to like be like, oh my God, this is the best product ever, this is how you use it. You don't have someone there to kind of champion your product. All the customer has is what they see on your website. Mm-hmm. So what we figured out is that people need to be able to try this. They need to touch it, they need to see it, they need a little demo of how to use it. And once they see that, they're hooked. But how do you do that in an online space? Mm. So marketing wise, we figured out that sampling was a really great way to get products into people's hands, to get them to try it. And once they could smell it and try it, it was a done deal. Mm-hmm. So on the marketing front, one thing that we kind of discovered early on, and I think has been working really well for us, is the idea of subscription boxes. Okay. So we reached out to, and we've had a lot reach out to us as well. There are many subscription box businesses out there that operate in the health and beauty space. There are tons out there for food as well. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that their business is they curate a bunch of products, they put them in a box, they send them to you every quarter or every month or whatever it is. So they pay us for these. Mm-hmm. They ship them to their customers. Customer gets to try it. Right. So we're not making a ton of money, but it is getting into the hands of people who are clearly into health and wellness, which is why they bought that subscription box to begin with. And it's a way for us to kind of get paid for someone to sample our products.
Yeah, paid demos are a good thing.
Paid demos. So that is something that has worked really well. Like I said, you're not going to make a ton of money off the sale because they want them for free basically, but we don't do that. Mm-hmm. So that has been one example of marketing that we've tried that brings people to our website, and not just any people, it's the people that fit our customer profile.
They've already tried it in the subscription box and now they're going, okay, I'm in now, I want this. And
I'm going to tell my friends and then I'm going to come buy some more.
Okay. So it's finding that proven, so driving consumers to your site who are really almost already there to buy.
Yes. The other thing we did early on, we launched our website in October, about almost 5 years ago. We signed up to do every holiday kind of Christmas show possible because, again, people need to see it, they need to smell it, they need to try it. And we sold a ton of them, but just as a way to kind of help people get a sense of the product and know it. So if they saw us online, then they already get it, because we really wanted to get that word of mouth kind of going.
So it's a balance between you do have to still interact with people. You can't.
Absolutely. And it's gold, honestly. Like a lot of people, you know, it's kind of love it or hate it to interact with the public. Because, you know, there are some lovely people, but you also come across some other people that are not so lovely. But it is the things that people say to you in those interactions are gold. Because you know what their problem is. You know why. Are they buying it for a gift? Do they have dry hands? Are they looking for a natural product, or do they not care? What scents are interesting to them? And then the other thing that I write down almost everything. I take notes
Wow.
if I'm not too busy,
Hmm.
because the things that people say to you, if you hear it over and over again, these moisturizers, 9 times out of 10, a woman will tell me this is perfect for my purse.
Mm.
So in our marketing, right, any
We'll
ads
put
we
them in
do,
your- Yep.
we try to reflect that language because we know it's something that's real. Like we've heard countless people say that to us.
Mm.
So again, that makes a more effective ad, which will then bring people to your website.
Right. Okay. So when you're doing online, and again, I always go back to my background in the retail side. I can do a sales forecast quite effectively with retail because I can say how many stores,
Yeah,
how many are we going to sell per
yeah,
store per
yeah,
week,
yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah.
How do you do a sales forecast when you have, I don't know how many billion people are in the world now, and they're all potential customers? So
I
how do you figure that out?
I have a love-hate relationship with sales forecasts. I love them in the sense that it forces you to sit down and think about the situation
Hmm.
and what it could be. We've been doing this for 5 years now. Every single sales forecast I have ever made has been nowhere near reality. Either it's been too conservative and we've had like some things, opportunities happen that we didn't even know existed,
Hmm.
let alone to like build them into our forecast. Or we've had things where we thought this deal was a sure thing and then things fall through the cracks.
Hmm.
So I think sales forecasts are important for a planning perspective. So if we are projecting, I don't know, $500,000 in sales, then that helps us plan from an ingredients and materials, staff, labor, like we can plan for that.
Right.
But in terms of like putting all the eggs in the basket and assuming that because I put it in my sales forecast, therefore it will happen,
Right.
that has never come to pass. So like I think they're important, but not necessarily from I will make this much money in revenue this
Mhm.
year.
Right. So you really have to do your best, but and I'm sure history plays a big part when you get to online selling
Hmm.
because you can
Absolutely.
once you get past say Mother's Day the first year, you can understand what is the potential of that in your business and based on the
Yep.
promotion you did, and then you say,
Yep.
okay, next year if I'm going to ramp that up, I might get another 10% or
Yep.
20% or something like that.
Absolutely. But when you're starting out, you don't have those historical sales, and from year to year early on, it can be
Mm.
totally like there's no rhyme or reason. We actually worked with some engineers from Dow
Hmm.
for a little while that helped us kind of like helped analyze the data, crunch our numbers. And he was like, there's no rhyme or reason to this in terms of our sales history, because yeah, there are so many moving parts. So yeah, I have a weird love-hate relationship with forecasting.
All right. Yeah,
Yep.
it's not easy. Not easy. So when you think about the skills to be successful in selling online,
Mhm.
what do you think people need to be good at?
Sales,
Sales?
because every interaction you have a website amongst a billion other websites.
Hmm.
So every time you meet someone, is not to like shove your brand down their throat, but it's an opportunity to kind of make a connection with someone who could then maybe try your product or check out your website or follow you on Instagram or whatever it is. And all those little kind of interactions, I feel like help build that momentum. So I feel like the idea of you have to look for opportunities to bring people to your website. And it may not just be from like paid ads.
Okay.
Right. So when I post things on Instagram, we were just in a subscription box leading up to Mother's Day. And, just by tagging, like hashtagging, subscription box, blah, 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 whatever, Mother's Day, hashtagging your posts, which, one hand, I'm just like, ugh, really? But on the other hand, it works, right? So you
It
get,
works. Yeah.
it works. So by tagging your posts, it's an opportunity to have your product featured in all of these other hashtag threads,
Hmm.
and people find you. So I think you kind of constantly have to wear the sales hat. not in a like pushy, aggressive kind of way, but just be kind of constantly thinking about it. And I don't think that really differs from having a B2B, like a retail store.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think marketing is a huge, huge deal. You have to bring people to the place where they can buy your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're not going to make the sale if nobody knows you exist and nobody comes to your website. And I don't think marketing is rocket science,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just knowing who your customer is, thinking about where they spend their time online or offline, and then putting whatever message that you think is going to resonate with them in those places to bring them to the place where they can buy your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Right?
I think it's common for all food and beverage and health and beauty. It's and one of the things, when I used to be able to travel and go speaking all over the place, I would always repeat many times, it's not about making great products to sell, it's about selling the great products you make. And I think that's so key.
Yep.
What about the technology side? Do you need to be good at the technology side to be successful?
No.
No?
No, because there are tons of people out there who are good at technology.
Mm-hmm.
I am not good at technology, but because e-commerce is so prevalent, there is a tutorial online for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So one example that comes to my brain is Google Analytics.
Mm-hmm.
So Google Analytics is a free tool that Google provides that you can connect to your website, and it will give you an insane amount of detail about what is happening on your website.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to make them talk to one another. Right? So, you look up tutorials and all it is pasting a piece of code that Google gives you into the right box in the back end of your website.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not rocket science, but you just look up a tutorial. You have to be patient enough and just try to not get frustrated if you're not a technologically savvy person.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot you can do yourself. And then I feel like it's a decision about whether or not it's a good use of your time to try to figure out how to reinvent this wheel, or should you just hire someone who this is their jam to do this simple thing and save you, 10 hours of frustration.
Mm-hmm. And I think
but like I said, just e-commerce is so big now. Like there are a bazillion people out there who can help you deal with any of the, especially with like a basic e-commerce site where you have a product and you just want to sell it. You're not trying to build an app or do a software solution, just basic kind of sales stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's an infinite number of answers and solutions and people out there to help you.
Right.
Yeah.
So find the help where in the things that you don't want to do or that you don't
absolutely
feel confident at.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And if you think of the online component of your business compared to, say, the bricks and mortar part, and maybe you can tell everybody where they'll be able to find it in bricks and mortar shortly as well. What do you see? Are there different priorities for you, or do you see them as the same, just a different delivery method?
Okay, so first, the cool thing that Peter just alluded to is our mini lotion sticks, the little body balm things that I briefly mentioned earlier, are going to be on the shelves of all Sobeys and Foodland locations across Atlantic Canada, like any day now, which is a strange thing to actually say out loud. But it's a pretty cool thing. I was telling Peter earlier how we had to pack up a pallet on the side of the road in front of our house last week because the place where we normally ship a pallet from is no longer accessible to us. So that was fun. My neighbors got a little show. So I don't even know whether or not so my understanding how it works with B2B is it's very relationship heavy.
Right.
So in terms of how we're, I guess, structuring our time these days is I'm going to be at a lot of Sobeys stores for the next little while. establishing those relationships, just trying to like basically make the category managers my friend, and be able to monitor how sales are going and what I can do and just all those sorts of things. It's going to be interesting given the current situation.
Yeah.
Online, because it's online, relationships don't really matter as much. There is no decision maker about whether or not your product is on the shelf. There's no gatekeeper. You decide how your product is merchandised by, you know, the images you choose to put on your website. So I think they're different beasts. I think there is still, like, I guess the theme from this entire conversation, there's a lot of overlap. But yeah, I think when you're working with store owners and category managers and those sorts of things, it's really all about the relationships you build with them. I think online, you're going to have relationships with your customers. I think customer service is huge when you have an online business. A lot of businesses suck at it, which I don't understand, because I think it's a competitive advantage to be the one that offers the best service. Everybody has a story about a company that made a huge mess of an order or a return or whatever it is, and they get really pissed off and they vow to never buy from that company again. And I think that's a huge misstep, because you can take that bad, whether it's the wrong size or whatever it is, and you can turn that around and make that customer super happy. So the nature of the beast is different, but I think you still have to focus on keeping the end customer happy. But like I said, the difference with the B2B relationship, in my experience thus far, is that there are some other kind of gatekeepers that you have to have those relationships with in order for that larger relationship to grow.
Right. So, but in the end, you have to focus on the person who's giving you the money for the product. Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna open it up to questions, because I think actually you and I could probably keep talking till 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
But I want to give people a chance to ask some questions, and I always want to respect people's time, because it is a busy time for everybody right now. And so there's one question there, and if anybody has any more, I'd be happy to go through them. But so one question is about, has your target market or persona, as you describe them, evolved over time? And if so, what data did you gather to help you evolve that?
So what we have discovered is, we thought in the beginning it was just kind of like women, like 25 to 30-ish, who are really into health and beauty. They like to buy local. They do yoga. They like to eat organic food. And then as this has all played out, we've realized we actually have maybe like 5 or 6 different demographics. Right. So our baby products, for example, it's the new parent, primarily the new mom. So that automatically kind of puts them into a certain age bracket. Sure. But you know, they shop at Whole Foods, or they would if they live near one. They want what's best for their baby. They want, you know, great ingredients. They want convenience. I don't know if you can hear it, but I have a 3-year-old squealing in the background.
Well, it's good for him to be part of the show, right?
Yeah, I don't think we want that. So then for these sticks, because there's no water, they're perfect for carry-on.
Right.
Right. So we work with Hudson News at the airport here and in Vancouver. So we have this kind of traveling audience. So every time we talk to people, doing these shows, little pop-ups, like I said, these conversations are gold. So you learn about this new use for your product that you maybe never considered, and it can open up this whole other little bucket of customers that you didn't know existed before. Yeah, so it's definitely evolved. It's become much more nuanced since we started. Yeah,
evolved, and coming from having the ability for that direct contact with consumers, whether it's at a show or something like that, or I'm sure you get feedback online as well from.
We do. We get reviews, but we also get emails from people all the time. So I take anytime someone emails me about anything, I basically try to drag out the conversation as long as possible. To get as much information as I can to learn. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to share my screen for a moment.
Sure.
Because one of the things which I try to do every week is just to share a little bit of good news going on in the industry, because I think it's been such a challenging time for people. So a couple things on the screen there now. You can see an effort called Feed the Need, which was a number of different businesses in Vancouver. And what they did was they did an industrial sized pop-up, and it was a food donation drive. So community organizations could show up with their trucks and pick up cases of food from people, companies like Fine Choice Foods, Garden Protein, Frybe Gourmet Foods, Big Mountain Foods, Just Go Smoothies, Eat Well, and Fresh Direct Produce. So you can see a whole part of the community got together to try to share some food with people who need it. And then on the right, I think we have to understand the whole value chain is so important. So Nolinor Aviation used one of their Boeing 737s, a cargo plane, to deliver a whole load of food and water and hygiene products to people in Iqaluit. So we have to recognize that the whole value chain comes together in these times. And food service, although they've been decimated with not enough traffic in their restaurants, you can see some people from Eastside Mario's and Swiss Chalet there in Halifax donating 200 meals to the people who work at a long-term care facility in Halifax. And then I'm sure most people are familiar with all the tragedy we've dealt with in Nova Scotia in the last couple of weeks. And Neil Sullivan and his team at Coca-Cola have been distributing free drinks to a lot of the first responders, the people who are still in some of those areas trying to figure out what happened and sort through the tragedy that they're dealing with. So thank you to all those people. I think it's just incredible to me what's happened in the food industry to show how people come together in a tough time. And I think it's incredible the way that our industry has responded. So always I want to share some of those. And then I do see, Carolyn, we got some more questions.
Okay, sure.
So somebody's asking whether the webinar will be available. So afterwards, we will send the people who are registered here today a link so they can watch it at their convenience and probably take some more notes from all the great insights that Carolyn has shared with us. And then what I do is I put it into our SKUFood members only area so they can access it. And another question here was your strong online presence and your brand an important step to getting into a larger store like Sobeys?
I would say yes. So for me, it always comes back to perceived risk. So if Sobeys wants to take a chance on us, they want to make sure that we're legit. So I think having a strong, established online presence definitely helps. I mean, the key to unlocking that was getting a meeting with the right person, right? And then having a great conversation and them liking the products ultimately. But I think having an established online store and hopefully a cohesive brand, it can't hurt.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what I would tack onto that, if I think back to my days on the retail side, is that really when a retailer is looking at a new product, the proof of concept and proof of sales is so important to them, because that shelf space is so valuable. So if I'm going to give you a foot or 2 feet on my shelf, and you can show me you're already selling to this many consumers, I'm much more comfortable than I am if you're not doing that right now. So I think the online, and it also says to me, I would probably ask you some questions about how you operate your business. And if you said to me, well, we had a customer where we had to pack a pallet on our front lawn and all that, then I'd say, you know what, these people are in it and they're trying and they're going to do their best for me and do what needs to be done. So I think it does help you pave the way for sure.
Yep, that risk, right? Yeah. Reducing risk.
Mm-hmm. So Carolyn, I'm going to check one more time, but I think that's all the questions we had. Yeah. Cool. So I want to say thank you. First of all, thank you for being here and sharing all kinds of great wisdom. I know I've got some notes on my notes here in terms of some of those priorities you talked about and things that people need to be aware of. And then the exciting thing for me too is that next week we're going to do this again. And if your little guy cooperates again next week, we'll see. We're going to talk about Amazon and your experience in getting Duckish on Amazon and how to be successful at it. And I think that's it's such a massive thing to
Whole
talk
other
about.
kettle of fish. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. So
Me too.
for those of you, you can register for all of our series in May with one link there. And if you need the link, you can go to SKUFood.com. You'll find right on our homepage. Where you can click on it, and it will take you right to register for them. So again, thank you, Carolyn.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for everybody for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you again next week.